Thank you, Dr. Pereira. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can.
Hopefully I did not pronounce your last name incorrectly.
No, that's quite fine.
I've looked at the list. I've looked at the list of participants, and I could say that I know a few of them, and this is good because this will give me some confidence in this presentation. Of course, the presentation it will not be in directly to the impact of climate on the Guyanese built environment, but what does the Hydro-Met service do, or our current work that can contribute towards decision making on that key topic there, where Dr. Pereira is a specialist on. So I'm generally in the seasonal forecasting section of the Hydro-Met service, is the climatology section. So in this presentation I'm about to deliver here, I'll give you some idea of the seasonal forecasting and the monitoring, because that is very important, noting what is happening on the ground currently. So the outline of the presentation generally is the global framework for climate services. Most of you would have seen this before, those who know me. Weather and climate timescales is very important to differentiate these timescales. Climate forecasts, how and why. May to July forecast. This is the forecast that we would have delivered in April towards this during the current rainy season, and I was able to prepare some preliminary results for the July to September forecast. Additionally, there will be rainfall and temperature monitoring through the map room, a portal that we have, a web portal where you're able to access some of our monitoring data and other climate services that is being produced by the Hydro-Met service. So most of the work that we are doing, especially in the climatology section, is being guided by the GFCS. That is a global framework for climate services. It's an initiative from the World Meteorological Organization to come up with something to better address the management and the risk of climate variability and change and adaptation to climate change. And in order to address that, you will have to look at the end users and the impacts in different aspects. For example, agriculture and food security, disaster risk reduction, water health, and energy. So the implementation of the global framework for climate services would have happened already. And now we are in the phase of the regional. For example, at the Caribbean level, we have the Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum. In other parts of the world, in the Pacific, in Africa, in Latin America, they have others. And they have the National Framework for Climate Services. This is yet to be implemented in Guyana, but we are at some level to achieve that. So, but a key terminologies here for persons I would like to put there, they are well known. And the well-known saying is climate is what you expect and weather is what you get. So this actually clarifies the difference between climate and weather. It's very important that while some of us may use the terminologies interchangeably, in essence, we understand what we're talking about. And it's important to know how do we forecast and how do we monitor these levels. So climate information prepares us for the weather that will actually experience. Climate services provide climate information in a way to assist decision making by individuals and organizations. Some of you might be hearing a lot of climate services here because that is the area that I'm specializing in. So we must continue to strengthen the use of climate services in decision making. We must allow engagement between providers and the users of the climate information. The provider is Hydro-Met service, enable effective access mechanism, prepare targeted climate information products that respond to users' needs, and effective application by users of the climate services. So it must be scientific based, based on accumulation of knowledge over the past, present, and future climate system. The climate service providers ought to develop and deliver a range of products and advice based on knowledge of climate and its impact on the natural and human system. It's very important to know historical climate data sets, produce monitoring products, climate watches, monthly, seasonal, decadal updates in terms of prediction, and climate change projection. So the climate services users, the users distinct from high-level users to simple end users to the common man on the ground, and also we refer to sectorial, the sectoral holders of the climate products. So what are these products in general? They're temperature, rainfall, wind, soil moisture, ocean condition. So these are the data that you need in order for you to start being able to produce something into information. And as well, the final products will eventually be maps, vulnerability, risk analysis, assessment, long-term projection, and scenario. Based on the content of my presentation and what you would have been seeing around Guyana, you would know where we stand and what are the next step we should take. So depending on the user's needs, these data and information products may be combined with non-meteorological data such as agriculture production, health trends, population distribution in high-risk areas, road infrastructure maps for delivery of goods, other socioeconomic variables. So you would see clearly, even though there is a very accurate climate forecast or weather forecast, we know the areas and the importance of non-meteorological aspect of this topic. So the GFCS in general target not only the specific sectors, but in a systematic approach in order for us to achieve what these, the real idea of the GFCS. There are 5 pillars. We must enhance our observational network. We must enhance research modeling and application, produce good climate information system, and have a user interface platform where we could communicate this and continue building capacity across the different those different pillars. So what Hydro-Met has done so far regarding that is to enhance. We've came up with a project with Columbia University, enhancing national climate services. So generally, in order for us to address the matter of climate change, the management of the risk of climate variability and change and adaptation, that's a key subject for sustainable development. That's the ultimate goal that everyone wants. But however, we need climate information. So we need climate information in the past, present, and future climate. Then who produces that information? So you have to get it coming from somewhere. So we have climate services provided like the NMHS, National Meteorological Service. So, and in addition to that, in order for you to produce that information, you need to have climate data. The data is the foundation. And therefore, that's the idea, the general idea of NACS. So the seamless hydrometeorological and climate services is very important that I present these ranges here when we're talking about these time scales about minutes, hours, week, etc. Because this clearly is in the weather time scale. And at the same time, while you're forecasting, you're also performing observation, and you will see eventually why this is so important. The other time scale is the climate variability. So that you're referring to over 2 weeks, a month, seasonal, and average. So these are presented in outlooks, etc. And then we have the climate change, where you're referring to projection, scenario of projections, and to put that in the context of how do you produce something out of this to the end users. We have you could have customized products, for example, risk assessment maps, risk monitoring, early warning, public advisory, research planning tools, etc. While this slide looks similar to the previous slide, it's very important that I point this out on the hydrometeorological or the meteorological point of view, that we're referring to short range weather forecast. This is being produced by the National Weather Watch Center. Then we have the mid-range weather forecast. This is much more of a longer, between over 7 days going into 2 weeks. And we have the long range. So that's the forecast that I'll be focusing a lot on this presentation. So to understand how do you interpret these information as end users, when you speak about the seasonal output or outlooks, where you see in this to the right there, 3 months to 90 days, you're basically talking about average. So within that season, you're not expected to receive any information for any particular day, but you give us statistics within that 3 period. That's how generally you interpret that. So how is this very important, the seasonal forecast? How does it fit within your decision making? So it fits within the ready. the seasonal forecast. It fits within the ready. So you begin monitoring mid-range and short-range forecasts, update contingency plan, train volunteers, sensitize the community, enable early warning. And then in the mid-range forecast, you continue to monitor short time scale forecasts, mobilize assessment team, alert volunteers, warn community, local preparation activities, and go. The short-range forecast, you deploy assessment team, activate volunteers, and evacuate community, etc. So the climate forecast, how and why? Why? Because climate forecast needs to be expressed in probabilistically because why? There is usually a wide range of distribution of possibilities, even with our better than chance accuracy. So the reason that as I said earlier, we cannot really forecast or predict something within a particular day, within the 3 months, but it's in probability. But we just have to be able to represent it well and ensure that it's sensible, something that can be achieved. So it's represented as above normal, below normal, and near normal. So over the past weeks, you would have heard these terminologies a lot. So above normal is basically what you see in green. So those who would have seen similar graphs in your particular area, you would know that it's basically a bell and shift whatever the higher portion of this bell here to the higher portion to where it shifts. That's what we consider as the predominant category, if it's above, normal, or below. So the climate forecast is based on what? Basically is based on sea surface temperature. That's one of the key indicator, the key variable, because the sea surface temperature is it's a large scale change it takes a longer time to change the sea surface temperature from 1 degree to another, if it's 0.1 degree to 0.2 degree. And it's a very good indicator for Guyana. And in the case of El Nino, I'm trying to point out here that while it was not declared as an El Nino, most of you will remember 2016 and 1998, but this was a very mild El Nino condition, so there was no need to declare it as an El Nino. So if you look at the brown on that map to the left here, and then you look to the right, you will see a lot of red or orange on that map. And if you follow the color code, it will say below normal. So at that time for the forecast period, December, January, February 2018, 2019, we were generally forecasting below normal rainfall. So regarding what we are currently going through here now, you've seen a lot of blue on this map as compared to some brown and blue on the other map to the left. Sorry, not map, these charts here. So on this right here, you see these charts, they're seeing a lot of blue, they're showing a lot of blue. So that's an indicator whenever there is blue, there is a low temperature, there's below average temperature in the equatorial Pacific. So with that, we have an indicator, we have an idea what the rainfall is likely to be in Guyana. And if you look how predominant that blue is on that right as compared to the left, so you would have an idea, or we have an idea, and you will have an idea why we are in the situation that we are currently. So to put it on a map perspective, you have something there where you call the El Nino region. So generally speaking, once there is strong blue in that area, they're likely to have high rainfall in Guyana. When it's a strong red, you're likely to have less rainfall in Guyana. So in order for us I included this slide. This slide may not go into perspective, but it's very important that we put this slide here. Why we need to improve the rainfall availability, because I'm about to explain how the forecast is done. So generally, we will have station data as you see those points, and you compare it to the legend on the left. It's in millimeter, of course, but there are key areas in Guyana that is not being represented on that map there, and they basically report their reports of flooding in those areas right now. So we blend this data with charts. We blend it, we call it March, and we'll have something like what you see at the bottom there. So what we do, we have data, for example, a monthly data in the case of the seasonal model. So you're looking at the monthly data there to the extreme left. That's what the rainfall would have looked like to the most recent month. But that's just a map representing 1 month. Behind that map, there are years of data, for example, 40 years of data. And we will find a relationship through the model what relationship it has, the behavior of rainfall in Guyana and the sea surface temperature. And that's one of the way to forecast using the sea surface temperature. Or we also look at a model that has been produced by one of those developed countries or those who are really good in their model, and we downscale the model. So there are two ways in doing that. At the same time, we take a look at the global forecast, what they look like, what they are producing, and see how close is it. And we make a decision, the final map. In this case, if there's a high percentage or a high chance for above normals because it's in blue, and it shows a lot there. So I choose to include this slide here to build some confidence in what we're talking about and how good is this forecast. Because for those, for the benefit of you, we've hosted an NCOF in April, and this was the forecast. So you see some brown to the bottom of Guyana, some blue to the top of Guyana, some green in the middle of Guyana. So that was a really confusing forecast. How do we communicate this to the public? And then we give, okay, above the forecast is basically saying above the normal. But what is the normal we're talking about? This is what the map here in the center is saying right now, what the normal rainfall amongst is, what it should look like. And then we give a forecast in value. So the pink generally means that we're high rainfall is expected, the blue as well, because we could compare it to that. So we produced at that time, August, September, but that forecast is still not on forecast because we have updated this forecast about 3 times already. This is going to be the 3rd time we're going to be updating this forecast. But what is key here? What is key here is that in April, we said wetter than usual condition can be in northern Guyana, can be expected in northern Guyana, and wet as usual in the south. Dry as usual throughout the country, with slight chance of wetter condition in regions 1 and coastal area. That's when we speak from August going to October. So this has been updated. So the message will not be the same. The implication is very important of this forecast. Reliable rainfall large-scale agriculture users, conservancies and reservoir will be recharged to maximum capacity. Flooding can lead to the loss of crops and livestock. So I'm happy that some of my colleagues here works in the extension and they will be able to see what we were talking about in general. So the possibility of landslide, disruption to transport, contamination of surface water. We've been reading the news. We know we're talking about in the Amazoni area now. Moist condition would be favorable to mosquito breeding, water accumulation, and results in waterborne diseases. So notwithstanding that, there is how do we, can the previous forecast actually say anything about flood? How do you use this information to say the likelihood of any flood in Guyana? So we produce something that is called a wet-based forecast. So notwithstanding that you know that the rainfall is likely to be above normal or below normal, we're able to do a comparison of the usual number of wet days and then a forecast that you will receive, what the forecast is saying. So when you compare these two maps, the map to the right, it's showing much more pink than the usual map. So that was giving us an indication where we're likely to see an increased number of wet days. In addition to that, we look at something that you call a 7 days wet spell. That's a 7 consecutive days, and not any 7 days. Those in the top 10% or the 90th percentile. So where you're seeing as we approach the color purple, if you can see that, there is a likelihood that we were seeing since April, these areas are likely to have flood. Similarly, in the 3 days extreme wet spell. And if you look clearly here, though you might see a decrease in the number of wet spell of 3 days extreme, this definitely leads to flood. You may see that on the right map. Amongst those blue, there are some pink there. And those are the points that we are experiencing some of the flood. And you will see clearly over region 9, region 10, and region 6, what is happening there. So possibility of extreme wet spell throughout, this is the implication of the forecast. We did talk about this. We did advise to plan drainage intervention to manage increasing rainfall. Wind will become gusty before, during, and after heavy downpours. So how do we monitor the rainfall if you want to monitor where we're coming from? So this is a tool that we call a standardized precipitation index. It's really, in other words, some people call it the drought index. As you go towards blue, you see a stronger blue. That's where you will see, you know that the place has been wetter than usual in Guyana. So from May, you see the areas that would have experienced a flood, they were actually higher blue. Similarly, if you look at it on a 3-month time scale from March to May, you will see a lot more blue. So this is telling you clearly over the 3 months, it was actually wetter. You look at it coming from December on a 6-month aspect, you can see the area with a high blue that the country was already wet. And even if you look at it on the 12-month perspective, you could see the area. So you would know clearly any rainfall from there beyond, what is the likelihood on the ground. So that gives you some idea in your decision making. Another way of analyzing what happened, we have something we call a cumulative anomaly, rainfall anomaly. It's basically the deficit in the rainfall, but you give it in percent because some area may have more rainfall than the rest. So the numbers does not really reflect what happened. So the strong blue, you can see there are high implication, there are very high difference in rainfall when you look at it in percentage in areas like some areas in region 9 and especially in the 10, 4, and 6 area. So we were able to analyze it, producing some charts. We still have to update some of the title on these maps here because the climatological year would have finished the new climatological period, or the baseline that we use is from 91 to 2000. But in order for us to fully define and make that and develop that, we have to get data from across the country and quality check it. So the baseline currently used in these charts is from 1981 to 2010. But what is interesting, when you look at these charts here to the extreme right, you can see all the spikes going up. And the one in B that shows B, you're seeing a lot of blue as you go towards the right. So that is indicating that the country in region 5, it was actually wetter. So from my friend Patel, Dhiram there, you could see why any rainfall from now would mean flood in this area. Similarly, we give a trend analysis for the past 4 years. You may see a broken trend there with the black, and that is because the value has exceeded 200 millimeter. We have to fix that because now what this tells us, similarly when you compare the cumulative rainfall there compared to the mean, the blue is the current year and the black is the long-term mean. So it means now these extreme rainfalls, now we have to go back into our program and on our scripts and edit the legend for these maps because they are auto-generated. So these extremes are very important now to go back and make changes. So the July to September, as I said, I'm just going to give a little idea what the forecast is going to be like because this has not released yet. But for you good guys and you good colleagues here, I'll share this with you. So we are forecasting above normal rainfall. This is what the rainfall is likely to look like. As you go towards the pink, it's showing that region 10, 8, 7, 9, some areas in region 4 and some areas in 1 is likely to receive very high rainfall. Now, the amount of rainfall would not be compared to what you would have received in May, because as we go towards July and August, the rainfall will gradually decrease. That's how, and we also give the lower threshold. So again, we have a probabilistic map to the extreme left here. Then we have what the normal we are talking about when we say the probability of having above normal rainfall. This is a normal. This is a forecast map. This is how high it could get, the upper threshold. And below here is how low you can on rainfall you can expect. In this case, the low is not a concern, it's the upper threshold because we know what we're facing on the ground. And again, we're forecasting some wet days and wet spell. I will not go into that for the interest of time. So where you can read about this, we have a bulletin or newsletter we produce every month. You can access this by our website. Also, we have this tailored to the agriculture sector. And this is done by our agriculture, our agro-meteorological section. And this comes back to what we are doing in complying with the Global Framework for Climate Services, that this information needs to be tailored to the specific need. So other information that you can see, we have a drought bulletin addressing at this time. Don't be confused that we are talking about drought, but it's very important that we issue the bulletin because that's a requirement. But the bulletin will say there is no concern. So you can access all of these products on our website. In addition to that, to the map room that I keep talking about, you can access it on there. So the map room allows you to do analysis where you could look at rainfall patterns from the past, the trend of these for any individual location across Guyana. For example, here, you don't make a decision for one part of Guyana because we know different parts of Guyana, the wind start at different time, end at different time. Some places have one rainy season, some places have two. So similarly, for the temperature analysis, there is high resolution. Its resolution is 5 kilometers. All of this you could access online. It's freely available. These are some other stuff on the website. So thank you. I hope I did not go too fast and confuse you there, but thank you.
All right. Thank you,